Good morning. In today's headlines, Hunter Biden could soon be facing 10 years of jail time on felony gun charges. And House Oversight Chair James Comer digs into his probe of the Biden family business dealings.
Skepticism from the judge, talk of a 4-month trial, and 150 expected witnesses from the prosecution. We hear from a legal analyst about the first hearing in Trump's Georgia election case.
A lawsuit seeks to bar former President Trump from the GOP primary in Colorado, citing the U.S. Constitution's insurrection clause.
The Biden administration makes a key decision affecting oil and gas drilling in Alaska. A Republican senator calls the move devastating. A California judge blocks a school's parent notification policy on whether a child identifies as transgender. NTD speaks to the Protect Kids organization on related new ballot initiatives.
And have you heard about giraffe naps? A cafe in Tokyo is testing out an interesting way of sleeping.
Good morning. Welcome to NTD. I'm Kevin Hogan.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm Evelyn Lee. Today is Thursday, September 7th.
Well, Evelyn, we have a lot of hard news to break, of course, with the Bidens and Trump topping the news, but those giraffe naps, it's really cool. Napping standing up, I would love to just try that. It would probably be good for the lower back.
Oh, yeah, good point. And it sounds completely crazy, but I have to say, I think they made a good point there.
Yeah.
Which we will reveal later in the show, of course.
I see.
Well, but today we start off with some news on Hunter Biden's legal troubles that are back in the spotlight. Federal prosecutors plan to seek a grand jury indictment on gun charges before the end of the month. A conviction could carry a penalty of up to 10 years in prison. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has more on the case.
The Justice Department said Wednesday that Special Counsel David Weiss intends to seek an indictment by September 29th under the Speedy Trial Act. Prosecutors didn't say how many charges would be brought. Hunter Biden's gun-related troubles stem from lying on a federal form about being addicted to illegal drugs when buying a revolver. Hunter Biden's attorney Abe Lowell said in a statement Wednesday that the previous deal, quote, prevents any additional charges from being filed against Mr. Biden, and that we expect a fair resolution of the sprawling 5-year investigation based on the evidence and the law, not outside political pressure. Hunter Biden previously reached a plea deal involving a gun charge back in June. It would have allowed him to avoid prosecution if he met certain conditions over a 2-year period. But the deal fell apart in a July court hearing. The judge in the case raised concerns over its legality and the scope of immunity it offered. The plea deal also included him promising to plead guilty to 2 tax misdemeanors to avoid jail time. A federal judge in Delaware dismissed the tax charges last month. It opened the door for new charges to be brought against the president's son in another jurisdiction. Weiss is still considering whether or not to charge Hunter Biden with tax crimes. He said in a court filing last month that a trial is now in order on the tax offenses and that he may bring tax charges in California or Washington, D.C. The House Oversight Committee reportedly asked Hunter Biden's attorneys for documents on the defunct plea agreement on Wednesday and gave them until September 20th to respond, marking a new chapter in the Republican-led panel's investigation into the Biden family. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
House Oversight Chair James Comer is digging into his investigation of alleged corruption from the Biden family. He's now calling for the National Archives to hand over emails between President Biden and his son.
The congressman says he expects the records will provide further evidence of collusion between Biden family members and then Vice President Biden's office. He says it will prove that President Biden engaged in abuse of power.
One example Comer provided is a letter from Eric Schwerin, a longtime Biden family business associate. He contacted then Vice President Biden's office in 2015 with quotes for the White House to use for media about Hunter Biden's role in Ukrainian energy firm Burisma. He received a response from the VP's communications director that said VP signed off on this. Here's Comer on Fox News yesterday about the email.
There was no wall between Joe Biden and his son, Hunter Biden, and his shady business dealings. This email that you just posted was one of many, and we believe there are more that the archives are sitting on. Our sources at the Secret Service say that Mayorkas called them to tell them to stop cooperating with Comer and the Oversight Committee. So Mayorkas and Merrick Garland are part of the cover-up. These are the two arguably highest ranking people in the Biden administration.
Comer says Hunter Biden's former business partner Devin Archer testified that Hunter called D.C. the same day as the letter to discuss pressure that Burisma asked to relieve.
The National Archives identified over 1,000 emails between business entities tied to Hunter Biden and his father, President Biden, to be turned over after being sued by America First Legal. Many of the documents contain redactions, and about 200 of them have been blocked from release.
Now to former President Trump's legal cases.
Prosecutors in Georgia estimate the trial will take 4 months. The estimate came in a hearing televised live on Wednesday.
It's the first time cameras have been allowed in the courtroom for any of the cases against Trump.
The judge in Fulton County remains skeptical the case would be ready to go forward in October with 19 co-defendants, including Trump.
Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee heard a flurry of motions Wednesday. He denied one to separate the cases of Trump's attorneys Kenneth Chesebro and Sidney Powell. Those two will be on trial together in a few weeks after asserting their rights to a speedy trial.
Meanwhile, 3 other defendants asked a judge in filings Wednesday to separate their trials from Powell and Chesebro. The judge hopes to make a decision on that early next week. Attorneys of Rudy Giuliani spoke after the hearing.
We're looking into it for Mayor Giuliani, and we should be filing a motion preliminarily challenging the indictment very soon.
You see the scope, just the sheer size of the case complicates everything. People don't even have discovery yet. You can have 150 witnesses with 19 cross-examinations of every witness. It's not feasible.
And according to a new court filing, the DA wants to keep the identities of jurors who may be chosen to hear the case secret.
This after the grand jurors who issued the indictment against Donald Trump and his co-defendants were doxxed online. Next, we have the chance to speak with a judicial scholar on the first hearing of Trump's Georgia election case. We're going to look at what happened and what we can expect going forward. John Malcolm, VP of the Heritage Foundation's Institute for Constitutional Government, joins us live. Good morning, John.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you.
What do you make of Judge McAfee's skepticism of DA Willis's October trial date request for all 19 defendants, saying it's unrealistic?
Oh, it's completely unrealistic. First of all, the 4-month estimate is likely to be longer than that if you're going to have over 150 witnesses and 19 defendants cross-examining those witnesses. I would say it's more likely 6 months, and that did not include jury selection. And jury selection in a case like this would likely take a month or 2 months at least. As well, all of these defendants have been provided with millions of pages of documents. Many of them have just retained their attorneys. They haven't had a chance to review these documents, consult with their attorneys, file pretrial motions, and there will be lots of them, including motions to dismiss on all sorts of grounds. The 2 defendants who it looks like will go forward, Sidney Powell and Kenneth Chesebro, the cases against them are more discreet, and they have demanded their speedy trial rights. So presumably they are not going to raise a lot of pretrial motions and want to get this trial done. So they will likely go forward in October. It surprises me, but I think they will. But I don't think there's any way that all 19 of these co-defendants are going to go to trial in October.
These co-defendants certainly have a lot to get through, and it's a lot on Judge McAfee's hands. I mean, he's just recently been appointed to the Fulton County bench, and he's probably one of the newest judges in Georgia. So what's the impact of the judge's decision not to separate Kenneth Chesebro's case from Sidney Powell's?
Well, it looks as if the remaining 17 defendants will get a preview as to what the government's case is going to be. One of the reasons why the government doesn't want to do this is that it doesn't want to have its witnesses have to testify 2 or possibly 3 or 4 times, depending on what happens to other defendants and whether they are severed. Every time a witness tells his or her story, that story changes, which makes it easier to impeach them, and there is certainly less surprise to the defendants. So I understand why she would want to try all of these defendants at the same time, but it's sort of her own fault for having charged 19 defendants in a very, very broad-ranging indictment.
Talk about broad-ranging. The prosecution plans to call 150 witnesses to the case, as we mentioned. Can you put that number in perspective for us?
Oh, that is a huge number. Well, look, she's charged a violation of the Georgia RICO statute. That's the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act against a presidential campaign, and basically said that anything that happened from the day after the election through Inauguration Day and beyond was part of a racketeering conspiracy. There are thousands of people who were involved in that campaign and involved in the effort to try to change the results of the election. I don't know which of the 150 witnesses she has chosen, but she said she has 19 co-defendants, 30 unindicted co-conspirators whom she can name, and an unnamed or unnamed additional number of unindicted co-conspirators whom she can't name. So who knows who she'll call. This trial, if it ever goes to trial, will be like the circus on steroids, and there's no way it's going to happen in 2 months. And if it did happen in 2 months, it would be reversed for a violation of the defendant's due process rights.
And Trump and his team have said that they would not be ready on such a short time frame. Now, do you have any insight from the hearing on how the judge is going to play out here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, a lot of the defendants are trying to sever themselves. Donald Trump is, of course, looking to put this off as long as possible, and for good reason. He's facing 3 other indictments, all of which have trial dates. And in addition, he has several civil suits going on at the same time that he's trying to run for president again. It is possible that a couple of these other defendants will be severed. Several of the defendants are trying to get the case removed to federal court. I don't know when a federal judge is going to definitively rule on those, but it looks as if the first 2, Sidney Powell and Ken Chesbrough, will go to trial at the end of October.
Yes, we'll see how that plays out. John Malcolm at the Heritage Foundation, I appreciate it. Good
to be with you.
And a lawsuit filed yesterday seeks to bar former President Trump from the primary ballot in Colorado. A liberal group argues the 2024 candidate is ineligible to run for the White House again. They're citing a rarely used clause in the U.S. Constitution aimed at candidates who've supported an insurrection. The complaint was filed by the group Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington on behalf of 6 Colorado voters. The state's top election officials are looking for guidance from the courts on how to interpret the 14th Amendment clause, used only a few times since the 1860s. The clause cites a wide range of offices under the United States. It says the provision applies to presidential electors, but not the presidency itself.
There's also debate about whether Trump's actions constitute an insurrection under the language of the amendment.
And coming up, the Trump administration issued gas and oil leases for Alaska a day before Biden's inauguration. Now the Biden administration is canceling them.
And the Pentagon is stepping up pressure on Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama. He's protesting the funding of abortion travel for service members. That and more after this short break.
Anyone who's ever sold a home will tell you it's really hard. And it's one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. That's why who you work with matters. Together with HomeLight, we take care of every detail.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Welcome back. The Biden administration is canceling 7 oil and gas leases in Alaska issued during the Trump administration. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the move, which has angered some Republicans.
The leases, canceled by the Department of the Interior, cover 365,000 acres in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska, or NPRA. The NPRA is a 23 million acre area on the state's north slope. It is the largest undisturbed public land in the United States. The department will also ban new leases on more than 40% of the reserve. President Biden issued a statement saying the U.S. has a responsibility to protect the treasured region for all ages. He says the move will help, quote, preserve our Arctic lands and wildlife while honoring the culture, history, and enduring wisdom of Alaska natives who have lived on these lands since time immemorial. The Trump administration issued the 7 leases to the Alaska Industrial Development and Export Authority one day before President Biden's inauguration. Republican Senator Dan Sullivan from Alaska criticized the move, calling it unlawful and devastating for the state. He wrote on X, "This war on Alaska is devastating for not only Alaska, but also the energy security of the nation." The Earth Justice Environmental Group commended the decision. Group President Abigail Dillon said, "Looking ahead, we hope to see the strongest possible protections for the Arctic refuge and the Western Arctic in the years to come." However, reactions from indigenous groups were mixed. Voice of the Arctic Inupiat says the decision flies in the face of our region's wishes and self-determination, while another native group called the Gwich'in Steering Committee applauded the action and said oil and gas development would threaten the Gwich'in people's way of life. Alaskan oil production has dwindled in the last 3 decades. The state currently produces less than 500,000 barrels per day of crude, down from more than 2 million in 1988. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
President Biden has rejected conditions of a plea deal for 5 defendants in the 9/11 attacks, according to the New York Times. The 5 are jailed in Guantanamo Bay and include the alleged principal architect of the attacks, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. The New York Times reported the deal lets them plead guilty to conspiracy in the attacks and receive life sentences instead of the death penalty. The defendants requested some conditions, including not serving their sentences in solitary confinement and being able to eat and pray with other inmates. The White House called the 9/11 attacks the single worst assault on the United States in Pearl Harbor and said the requested conditions are not appropriate for a plea bargain.
The Pentagon is stepping up pressure on Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, who has been blocking senior military nominations for 9 months. The Alabama senator says he's holding up nominations over the Pentagon's decision to cover abortion travel costs. He says it's a violation of the Hyde Amendment, which prohibits federal funding of abortion. The civilian leaders of 3 branches of the U.S. military slammed the senator in public this week. On Monday, the Secretary of the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force published an op-ed in the Washington Post against Tuberville. On Tuesday, the 3 secretaries appeared in a CNN interview criticizing the senator. Then on Wednesday, in a rare move, the Pentagon published a news story on its official website highlighting the impact of Tuberville's blockade.
Celeste Maloy won a 3-way GOP primary during a special election to replace longtime Utah Representative Chris Stewart. 6-term GOP Congressman Stewart announced his resignation in May. Maloy is a former aide to Stewart.
Maloy attributed the success of her campaign to its focus on rural areas, noting her message opposing government overreach struck a chord with rural voters. Maloy is a supporter of former President Trump. She's expected to have a strong advantage in the November special election in the Republican-leaning district.
And before we head into break, here are some short news alerts for you. A new twist in the Fat Leonard bribery scandal. The felony convictions of 4 Navy officers were dropped due to information being kept from defense lawyers. The officers were connected to a bribery investigation into a contractor nicknamed Fat Leonard. The convictions were lowered to misdemeanors. Each man pleaded guilty and paid a $100 fine.
Police and multiple agencies in D.C. are looking for a homicide suspect who escaped custody. 30-year-old Christopher Haynes escaped from George Washington University Hospital yesterday. The university has issued a shelter-in-place order for the campus. It is unknown whether Haynes is armed, but police advised people not to engage if they see him and to call 911.
The manhunt continues for Danilo Cavalcanti, the convicted murderer who escaped from a Pennsylvania prison last week. Cavalcanti has since been spotted in several locations in the area, including someone's home. Hundreds of law enforcement personnel are partaking in the intensive search. Police are looking into whether he managed to obtain a weapon and if he is being helped by someone.
26 million Texans can now relax after the Electric Reliability Council of Texas lifted its emergency usage alert. The recent heat wave caused an all-time record high peak usage. The power company avoided shortages by bringing all available generation online and releasing their remaining reserves.
That Fat Leonard scandal really is crazy, and just prosecutorial misconduct put an end to it.
Well, yeah, he bribed officers with millions in cash for classified documents.
Very serious. So we're going to the break here. Secretary of State Antony Blinken makes a surprise visit to Ukraine, but his trip was overshadowed by a deadly attack.
And China's Huawei back in hot water. Lawmakers say the company used U.S. chip technology and it was barred from using. We speak to an expert to find out more.
Award-winning filmmakers Stephen Barber and Matthew Housley, along with producer Tamara Henry, bring you the world's most dangerous paper route. Never-before-seen images from legendary Stars and Stripes military newspaper.
Don't worry about the bullet with your name on it. Worry about those flying around that say to whom it may concern.
I was a member of the West Point class of 1974. Stars and Stripes was part of our daily existence. In a way, the hometown newspaper of the U.S. military.
I think it's the most important newspaper in the world.
I had a choice between going to Armed Forces Network or to Stars and Stripes, and I picked Stars and Stripes.
Join Vanilla Fire Productions as they head downrange to Afghanistan, Iraq, and Kuwait to follow the world's most dangerous paper route.
These people put their lives on the line continuously.
After 4 months into Ukraine's counteroffensive, Secretary of State Antony Blinken made a surprise visit to the country. But while he was there, Russia launched a devastating attack, killing at least 17 people. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
In what appeared to just be another day at the market in eastern Ukraine, a Russian airstrike killed at least 17 people, including one child, in the city of Kostianantynivka. Wednesday's deadly attack happened during a surprise visit to Ukraine by Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
Never go to someone's home without bringing a housewarming gift. We come bearing some further assistance for Ukraine.
The White House later confirmed it will provide what is now the 46th additional weapons package for Ukraine since the war began. This latest one is valued at $175 million. During Blinken's two-day trip, he met with Ukraine's foreign minister.
We want to make sure that Ukraine has what it needs not only to succeed in the counteroffensive, but has what it needs for the long term to make sure that it has a strong deterrent, strong defense capacity, so that in the future, aggressions like this don't happen again.
Blinken also met with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who said this.
This is a difficult challenge and difficult, tough period for our society. And always the leaders of the United States, when they come, that's great message of support.
Just hours before Blinken arrived in Ukraine's capital of Kyiv, Russia launched missiles at the city. But Ukraine's military said its air defense systems shot them all down. When the Kremlin was asked about Blinken's trip, it said the U.S. plans to keep funding Ukraine's war effort until the last Ukrainian. But Russia may soon need to answer more serious questions. The president of Romania says his country's defense ministry is currently investigating drone debris that landed on Romanian soil. And he said if that drone turns out to be from Russia, it would be a serious violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Romania and the NATO allies. Jason Perry, NTD News.
And U.S. technology boosting Huawei's new phone. Washington is trying to figure out how this manufacturer was able to launch the smartphone amidst sweeping U.S. sanctions.
Authorities are now working to determine if restrictions were bypassed to create the phone's advanced chip.
Huawei unveiled its new Mate 60 Pro last week. It contains a chip believed to have been made by top Chinese chip maker SMIC, with a tech breakthrough that has left many wondering how it was realized.
Representative Mike Gallagher called on the White House to end all export sales to Huawei and SMIC. He said the chip likely could not be produced without U.S. technology, and thus SMIC may have violated U.S. trade restrictions.
Huawei was put on the U.S. trade blacklist in 2019 due to national security concerns. Its foreign suppliers must obtain special permission to ship goods to it. SMIC was also placed on the entity list in 2020 due to concerns that it could divert technology to the Chinese military.
But reports have shown that suppliers have obtained billions of dollars worth of licenses to sell U.S. technology to the two companies. The U.S. Commerce Department didn't immediately respond to a request for comment.
To delve deeper into this issue, I spoke to Anders Kaur, the publisher of the Journal of Political Risk, who says Huawei's new phone is quite possibly based on stolen technology.
Huawei has been producing or putting together some chip fabs in China, and they are trying to indigenously produce the chips that they previously relied on Intel for. So, this is the big question about what's the effect of the sanctions. Has the sanctions really put pressure on China and Huawei, or are the sanctions just a trigger for Huawei and China to get their own technologies in order in terms of their own chip fabs that can produce these things? It's very hard to do this. There are very few companies in the world that have super fast computer chips that can work for AI. And I think that's the main concern, that China would use these computer chips, not just in phones, of course, but in artificial intelligence, military applications that could be quite threatening globally, on things like surveillance drones or lethal drones that are able to target people or vehicles autonomously. So this is the concern.
Right. Now, with this latest development, then, where would this put China and the U.S. in this chip war, if we zoom out a little bit?
There's also a big competition for international markets. I don't think we're going to see so much Huawei access to the European and American markets. Those are decreasing now, but there is competition for markets in what China would call the global south, which is South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, South Asia, and they're trying to beat U.S. companies on price point. Also, Indian companies. I mean, it's not just U.S. companies, but it's European, Indian, U.S. companies that would offer smartphone technology to consumers. But if Huawei is allowed to capture all those markets, or if other Chinese companies are allowed to capture those markets, it will give the Chinese Communist Party quite a bit of power, because they'll be able to use that technology as backdoors for surveillance and hacking. And we know that's an incredible risk. We know that China is at the forefront of international surveillance, and they use these technologies for example, very important things like beating out other companies in any kind of competition, whether it's infrastructure, telecom, anything else. They can use, for example, industrial or economic espionage to win contracts worth hundreds of millions or billions of dollars.
Well, thank you so much, Anders Kaur. I really appreciate your time and insights today.
Thank you so much.
And now to some short headlines from around the world.
Russia has called the U.S. supply of depleted uranium weapons to Ukraine a criminal act. The Pentagon this week announced a new security package worth up to $175 million for Ukraine, including depleted uranium ammunition for U.S. Abrams tanks. Critics say dangerous health risks arise from depleted uranium dust. The UN has found no substantive link between the munitions and serious poisoning. And the remnants of Typhoon Haikui drenched South China for a third day since making landfall. Its storms flooded parts of southeastern Fujian province, damaging over 2,500 homes and forcing almost 300,000 people to evacuate. Streets in the cities of Fuqing and Yantai turned into rivers due to torrential rains.
Japan hopes to become the world's 5th country to land on the moon early next year. It launched a lunar exploration spacecraft yesterday aboard a homegrown rocket. Japan's lunar track record isn't great. 2 landing attempts over the past year both failed. The rocket carries an X-ray telescope to explore the origins of the universe.
And you know, Evelyn, there are a lot of concerns about U.S. weapons going to Ukraine. I mean, first it was cluster munitions, which endanger civilians later on down the road, and now it's these depleted uranium ammo.
That's right, and it was the EPA, as we've just heard briefly, that the depleted uranium is a health hazard in the body, and that's especially for the kidneys.
Right, yeah, very serious.
Girls sports, cross-sex procedures, parental notification. Children are the focus of 3 new ballot initiatives in California. NTD talks to the Protect Kids organization.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, I told you enough of that.
But look, this is different. It's Ganjin World.
Ganjin World. Family-friendly entertainment.
First time I came in here was Monday, and today is Thursday. I've had 2 surgeries and am doing fantastic. I'm still in shock that I can walk. That's all within 4 days. In 4th grade, I was diagnosed with scoliosis. I had 70 and 60 degree curvatures. Went to Shriners Hospital in LA. It's been fused ever since. I noticed a lot of pain going down my left buttock into my thighs and into my calf. I could be standing there and my legs would just go out. I went through pain management for 2.5 years, and the pain management specialist told me there was nothing more he could do for me. We actually did our own research, and next thing I know, Dr. Benatti called and he told me immediately over the phone what my issue was without even seeing me. I was in a twilight stage during surgery, and you can actually say, where are you feeling that pain? And it immediately stops.
Hold the leg up there. No pain here?
No.
No pain here?
No.
No pain on the butt?
No.
All of a sudden, they're all, do you want to get up and walk? Well, I couldn't walk before, and I got up and I just started crying because I had no pain. And I had all my weight on my left leg and on my right leg, and I walked a straight line with no assistance, no falling, no grabbing onto the walls, nothing. I held my own weight. And that's the first time in months that I was able to walk by myself.
Benatti succeeds where others fail. For more stories like these and the rest of our program, check out American Medicine Today, featuring cutting-edge medical and science innovators, previous surgical guests of the Benatti Spine Institute, and a medical professional's insight on political issues plaguing our nation. American Medicine Today, Sunday 6 p.m. and Wednesday at 2:30 on NTD Television and other streaming platforms.
Good to have you back. Masks in schools, an issue that proved divisive during the COVID pandemic, is stirring up new controversy.
That's after some learning institutions brought them back, reportedly to prevent the spread of the disease.
One such school is in Maryland. Rosemary Hills Elementary School has mandated that students and staff in a kindergarten class wear masks for 10 days. The rule was put in place after 3 students in the classroom tested positive for COVID.
In Alabama, Kinterbridge Junior High announced in late August that students, employees, and visitors should wear masks. While in New York, Governor Kathy Hochul announced this week that the state is making COVID test kits and masks available to school districts by request. From public health to the border crisis, a federal judge has ordered Texas to remove the floating barriers in the Rio Grande River. They're designed to stop illegal immigrants from crossing the river at the Texas-Mexico border. The issue has been in the courts since July. A lawsuit accused Texas of violating the Rivers and Harbors Appropriation Act by placing the buoys in U.S. water without permission. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says the buoys are intended to keep illegal immigrants from crossing into Texas from Mexico. Texas already appealed the judge's order. The governor's office said the state is prepared to take the fight all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
A California judge yesterday temporarily blocked a local school district's parent notification policy. The policy requires schools to notify parents when their child identifies as transgender. NTD's Daniel Monahan spoke with representatives of the Protect Kids organization, which supports such policies and recently launched 3 new ballot initiatives in California.
School District Trustee Jonathan Zackerson is one of the proponents of the initiatives. The School Transparency and Partnership Act is the first one.
It would require that schools notify parents if their child wishes to be treated as transgender at school. So as soon as the school gets involved and the kid says, hey, I want to go by this new name, I want to use these pronouns, I want to use these opposite sex facilities because I'm really the opposite gender, that's when these parents would be notified by the school.
Zackerson says the initiative also requires parental involvement in determining how the situation will be handled at school.
So it's not just a phone call to the home and says, hey, by the way, your daughter's now using the boys' bathroom. It's, hey, your boy wants to use the boys' bathroom, wants to use this. Let's sit down together and come up with a plan that's going to work best for your child.
The second initiative is the Protect Girls Sports and Spaces Act.
That would repeal a law that was passed 10 years ago that said that schools must let kids choose the bathrooms and locker rooms and sports programs that match their gender identity, even if it's different than their biological sex.
Protect Kids member attorney Erin Friday discusses the initiative.
This initiative is to bring back biological reality and biological truth that male bodies and female bodies have differences. And it doesn't matter how much surgery you do, how many hormones you pump into a male body, they're still going to be stronger, faster. Women, we're designed to have a flight or fright reaction when we're walking down a dark street and there's a male walking towards us. This is a natural part of our makeup. And now we're telling young girls to ignore this and to accept a naked person a naked man in their bathrooms.
The third initiative is the Protect Children from Reproductive Harm Act. It would ban any type of gender interventions on minors, meaning no puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, or surgeries for those under 18.
The interesting thing is that they say that gender is fluid until it lands on trans. And then it's static, which of course has no basis in science. Just a tragedy that we are allowing minors to make irreversible decisions that will affect their lives forever.
California Attorney General Rob Bonta disagrees. He says schools serve as the only safe haven for some students identifying as another gender. He filed a lawsuit on August 28th against a school district, which recently adopted a parental notification policy.
We have to ensure our schools are sanctuaries for every single student. We have to fight those who would try to rip that away from them.
Zackerson and Friday say polling makes them confident the initiatives will succeed if they make it to the November ballot, where they would go straight to the voters. They cite polling, which they say indicates strong support from people on both sides of the political spectrum for all 3 measures. They ask those who wish to support helping them get them on the ballot to go to protectkidsca.com. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Still to come, Bill Gates is betting on Bud Light. The billionaire purchased tens of millions of dollars worth of Bud Light's parent company in recent days.
Stay tuned to get 2 rolls of alien tape free. You wouldn't stick your mother-in-law on the wall, but you could with alien tape. It just sticks. Just peel and stick to make anything stay in place quick. Brick, pavers, marble, tile, plastic, even leather. Nothing works better than alien tape. You wouldn't stick your fishbowl on a moving car, but you could with alien tape. The secret is nano-stick technology that grabs and locks on to secure one side of the surface to the other. Alien tape secures in seconds, then twist, pull, and rinse to reuse. Call or go online to get your first roll of alien tape for just $19.99, plus shipping and processing. But to make this deal really stick, we'll give you 2 more rolls absolutely free. You get 3 rolls of alien tape for one low price. Order now.
To order, call 1-800-490-1364 or go to tryalientape.com. So call 1-800-490-1364 or order online at tryalientape.com.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza. Yes.
Make a plan today.
Bill Gates appears to be backing Bud Light amid a lengthy boycott targeting the beer maker. He purchased tens of millions of dollars worth of Bud Light's parent company in recent days. Here's the story.
According to a recent regulatory filing in Tip Ranks, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Trust purchased 1.7 million shares of Anheuser-Busch, the parent company of Bud Light. The shares are worth around $95 million. Reports indicate that Gates purchased the shares in August. That's months after Bud Light faced a boycott over its decision to engage in a promotional campaign with transgender activist Dylan Mulvaney. Following the boycott, Bud Light sales have seen consecutive drops every single week. The beer brand lost its #1 spot in the U.S. to Modelo Especial. Anheuser-Busch said that its U.S. revenue fell by 10% in the second quarter due to falling Bud Light sales. The company's U.S. division confirmed several weeks ago that it was laying off about 300 employees. For his part, Gates has not made any public statements about Bud Light, the boycott, or Anheuser-Busch. Neither has the beer giant. Gates also bought shares of other beer brands in recent months. Reuters reported that he purchased about $1 billion worth of shares of Heineken Holding earlier this year.
Coming up, glowing blue waves dazzle beachgoers in Southern California. A videographer shares more on this unique natural phenomenon.
And giraffe napping, a new concept a Tokyo cafe is trying out. You don't want to miss this.
(2023), the 10th NTD International Classical Chinese Dance Competition aims to promote the traditional art of classical Chinese dance. September 9th and 10th, top dancers from around the world will compete in skill and showcase talent at the Performing Arts Center of Purchase College in New York. Do not miss the opportunity to watch these long-lost dance techniques live. Visit dance.ntdtv.com for live stream information.
Good to have you back. Is it movie magic or a natural wonder? In an almost special effects-like display, glowing blue waves recently decorated a number of Southern California coastlines, mesmerizing beachgoers for about a week. NTD's Jason Blair spoke with a videographer who was lucky enough to capture the unique phenomenon.
Glowing bioluminescent water along the coast of California recently dazzled visitors in a few areas along the southern coast.
We were really fortunate to find this pool of water that was stationary for a while, and it had tons of bioluminescence in there. So anytime you touch the water, it just glowed like crazy.
Patrick Coyne has been capturing the elusive phenomenon for the past few years.
It's very random when it does happen, and there's really no way to predict it. The only way that we really know that it potentially might happen is if we see a red tide during the day.
Bioluminescence is caused by dinoflagellate algae, which during the day turns the ocean red, but at night glows blue when ruffled up. In some areas like Florida, it's more predictable to find, but due to various factors like tides and winds in California, it's a rare treat.
And 9 times out of 10, it leads to nothing. But obviously, it's that one time that makes it count.
In 2020, there was a super bloom, and Coin with some friends spotted some dolphins swimming with the bioluminescence.
And obviously, I'd never seen dolphins swimming in bioluminescence before, which was just one of the craziest experiences I've ever personally had.
Coin says finding and capturing the natural wonder is something he'll never get tired of. He loves the chase, experiencing it, and being able to share his footage. Jason Blair, NTD News, California.
Cool story. So Evelyn, before today, had you ever heard about giraffe naps?
Nope, no clue.
Okay, well, I'll tell you about it. And this is a company in Tokyo, and they're testing and marketing a new way for people to grab a nap, and that's while standing up. So let's take a look.
Many of us living modern lives are just not getting enough shut-eye. But if you happen upon this cafe in Tokyo, you may just rise to the ranks of the well-rested. Are giraffe naps the answer you've been searching for?
Every day, giraffes sleep while standing up for about 20 minutes, just like that. 20 minutes a day is just right for a nap. That's why we call it the giraffe nap, because of the way giraffes rest.
The sleeping pod is designed for one person. It has cushions for your knees and behind, and a fold-down headrest.
The thing is, if you lie down to rest, you could easily sleep for 1 or 2 hours, which would have a negative impact on your sleep during the night. We've promoted the idea of sleeping while sitting, but with this giraffe nap, you can stand and sleep. It's great for a 20-minute nap, so we ordered it.
Customers' initial reviews are favorable.
It was my first experience of sleeping while standing up. My body weight was more supported than I expected, and I was able to get some rest.
The pod maker plans on marketing them to offices and hospitals, and it may just take off. Data from an OECD survey shows out of 33 countries, people in Japan slept least. So when in Tokyo, grab a nap in your knapsack. The trial's on until mid-September.
Genius.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I think they make a good point, because if I lie down to take a nap, good luck with waking me up after that. So
yeah, it's easy to just catch a lot of Z's when you go on a nap. And I wonder if those pods, which are pretty cool by the way, are soundproof.
Yeah, good question.
And that would kind of defeat the point, right? Because then you're not supposed to get too deep into sleep.
Or you wear like little headphones, and it looks like there's a little window to look in. I'm not sure. I didn't see it quite clearly, but it looks like there's a window and everything.
That's a nice design.
Yeah, they probably have thought of it. All right, that's all for today's program. We'd love to hear from you at goodmorning@ntd.com, so write us an email if you'd like. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.